Speaks Live. Tristan, baby. This Hot Topics mode was cute. We gotta have you back.
I'm gonna call you Trish.
Let's
Bring it. He brings it, honey.
Yes, we needed some levity. We needed some levity because this is a very heavy but very absolutely necessary conversation that we're having. And we are so lucky to have with us still Robin Mays, host of Intentional Living on AIB. And when I tell you on part one, she dropped so many jewels.
girl.
I was sitting here like writing down like, okay, what's that? Free women, free women. Like it's just so good.
PhD.
Absolutely.
On loving yourself.
And we had a great conversation with Jazzy McBee, but we are lucky enough to have here Tristan Timothy.
Hello.
Who is, as I stated earlier, a celebrity gossip correspondent. And he has a show called the host of The Tea.
The
right?
Tea,
The
baby.
Tea, on Station Head. So, Tristan, I want you to ask or take advantage of the opportunity to speak with Dr. May about LBGTQIA community and how plus so it's LB. Let me say this right.
Listen,
the
I'm just getting used to
LBGTQIA
it.
plus community and mental health.
Yeah.
And bipolar disorder and bullying and so much. So, do you have any questions or anything you'd like to share?
It's, I've heard that there is a bunch of undiagnosed mental illness in the LGBT community. I just have to end it there. So I just kind of am wondering, what are the signs that you look for? How do you recognize that?
So one of the things we have to understand is that in the LGBTQIA plus community, we're dealing with a double whammy. We're dealing often with people who are feeling isolated, who are feeling marginalized, and not even feeling, who are being marginalized. And so often that stressor can begin to trigger symptoms that lead toward needing to get ongoing support. So this is what I would say to anyone who is needing the support. Number one, go get it. Go get the support. I mean, I know that sounds simple, but so many times you're just carrying the burden. And the second thing I would say is that I truly believe for that community, you need referral-based therapy. You need someone who has worked with that particular therapist before, because there are specialties. There are specialty for people who are in that community who can get specialized help. But here's another suggestion I would have. I truly believe in group therapy. And the reason why I truly believe in group therapy, because that gives you that synergy, that gives you that community, and that gives you that support. You have other people with you who can say, been there, done that, got you, I have your back. So I truly encourage you to consider finding some group therapy as well. It's super easy. Well, I shouldn't even say it's super easy, but it's doable. One of the first things you can do is, again, reach out to people who've gotten therapy before, because they can give you a great referral.
That's so good.
I have a question, Tristan. Have you personally ever dealt with those issues?
Personally, I have. I was a depressed teen. I tried to kill myself at 17. I tried to commit suicide.
Oh, wow.
Thankfully didn't, because life
Thank
got
God.
so much
Yes.
Cheers.
That, honey. Yes.
About it.
But went on, I'm currently, I see a psychotherapist. I take my medication that keeps me right, because it was manic depressive, in the early 2000s. Now we hear bipolar a lot. I'm diagnosed as bipolar, which manifests in like many different ways, depending on the person. For me, it's like a mania. I think I'm so brilliant and I'm getting all these ideas, and then I'm not sleeping except for 3 hours a night, and then it goes on and it compacts until it's a destructive thing. Even if I think I'm getting things done and I'm creative, it's not really helping me.
I am dealing with members of my family who struggle with bipolar disorder. And sometimes you just want to shake them to pieces. And other times you want to remind yourself that they are dealing with a very real mental health issue. How do we deal with people that we love who are diagnosed with mental illness?
When someone is dealing with any mental illness, whether it's bipolar disorder, whether it's schizophrenia, whether it is anxiety or depression, one of the things we have to be careful about, if we are the person who is supporting that person, I want you to get this visual. If the person you love is in sinking sand, if they're in quicksand, if they are falling down, you cannot get in the quicksand with them. Somebody has to stand on solid ground. Somebody has to stand out and reach out to help. Because what often happens is that if that person is having increased mania, or if that person is having a low, and you get in that with them, now both of you are in that place. Somebody has to stay on solid ground. Now listen, when I say that, even when I'm working with my clients, when I say that, it can feel like you're disconnecting. I'm not saying that you have to disconnect, but somebody has to stay solid. And so you stay solid and you keep reaching out saying, I'm here to help, I'm here to help. Because here's the reality. When you're dealing with any mental illness, it does come a point when that person has to be willing to get the support. And so as you're going through that journey, somebody has to stay solid. And so that's one of the things I would highly recommend. And then also, when that person is at a normal space. Now, let me just say this. Let me just go here. All of us have something, okay?
Yes,
I want to let all of us know we all have something. And the reason why I want us to understand that is because we don't want to make people who have a diagnosed mental illness feel like y'all are over there and we're over here, okay? So all of us are dealing with something. This is how I break it down. Whether or not your something is starting to interfere with your everyday life, okay? And so if somebody is dealing with a mental illness, when they are in a good space, again, that's when you put the plan in place. When they're in a good space, when they're in a calm space, you put the plan in place of how you're going to help. So just remember, somebody has to stay solid. So if they are spiraling, you can't spiral with them.
I have a question. I have a dear friend of mine who went to college with me, and she is bipolar. And we've tried to reconnect. And honestly, through that reconnection, I fall into how things used to be with her, and then these big stories start to come. And I can't deal with it because I'm like, what is going on? And I'm like, how do I? When you say someone has to remain constant, or what did you say, Doctor?
Someone has to stay anchored.
Someone has to stay anchored, and I'm trying to stay anchored, but she's in this story. And finally, one day, I said, are you taking your meds? And it infuriated her. And then that made me jump back, because then I'm like, what did I do? I didn't mean to, I didn't mean to say anything wrong. It's just, I'm listening to all of this fabulosity of things going on in your life. And I don't know how to stay in the storm with her.
I need you to be compassionate with yourself. Listen, that's somebody that you love, and knowing how to navigate it moment. But listen, I'm the professional, and even sometimes when I'm working with my clients, I'm trying to manage and navigate it with them. We are a complex and complicated people. And so what I would say to you in those moments, you have to remember, when you are the one who's staying anchored, I need you all to hear this, when you're the one who is anchored, that person in that moment does not realize that they're not anchored. It seems very real to them.
Yes.
And so what I kind of tell my clients who are dealing with someone that they love, you are trying to be logical with someone who is in that moment cannot be logical. So you do your best to create a safe space around them. So in other words, making sure that they're not putting themselves in harm the best that you can. And then one of the next steps you do is you say what you said, hey, in a way that you know how. Have you been taking your meds? What's going on with that? You cannot predict their response, but this is what you may not know. You said that. Somebody else who loved them says that. And eventually the pieces will connect. Eventually pieces will connect.
Whew, talk about a wealth of information on mental health. Robin is giving it to us. And when we come back, we are going to discuss the effects of mental health and depression on our youth. It's ridiculous, the numbers of children who are committing suicide these days, and we want to get to the bottom of that. We'll be right back with more She Speaks Live. Welcome Welcome back to She Speaks Live and our special presentation on mental health in our community. Now, Tristan, you said something that really stuck to me and hurt my little heart. You said when you were 17 years old, you attempted suicide, but thank God you did not prevail.
Yes.
The suicide rates happening right now are ridiculous, and we were talking about the young man.
Right, Nigel Shelby.
Nigel Shelby.
Who was 15 in Alabama when he committed suicide. You know, his mom was taking him to a therapist. He had come out, I guess, when he was younger, and he was going to a therapist, and she was saying, you know, even if your child is in therapy or something, you still need to watch. Don't think they're taken care of, right? You still have to do your due diligence and watch them and talk to them and help them work through it. Really,
yeah, that's really deep. This reminds me of a scene in From the Bottom Up where Angela Stanton and her son, who is also a young gay man, went to therapy to talk about his LGBTQIA plus lifestyle, and that was a lot to watch.
Wow,
I applaud that young man.
that,
Remember that?
Nicci.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah, it was.
It was so honest and raw. Christine, do you have any?
Well, we talk about this thing of talking to your children. It's just so important, and I know for me that's tantamount because, you know, especially in the African American community, you know, our thing is, oh, ain't nothing wrong with you, sit down. You know, we do that to ourselves, but we definitely do it to our children. Oh, there's nothing wrong with you, you know, and we brush it off. And I know from dealing with my own daughter, you know, who was diagnosed with major depressive disorder, it's tough. And both of my daughters are in college, doing great, all that good stuff.
Absolutely beautiful, smart, amazing.
But she battles.
Yeah.
You know, and it's hard. And it's, you know, I know kids are coming home for the holiday now. And actually, I know, you know, Robin is still with us, and I probably overtalk my daughter sometimes, you know, like what's going on? And sometimes she doesn't want to talk, you know, like so it's like it's a balance. It's a dance that you really have to perfect, you know, and I err on the side of being over communicative than less, you know, than not, you know, checking in. But what I would ask Robin, what would you say to parents? Because again, for me, I think the communication is the biggest part, but who may think don't really know if their child is dealing with depression. But I would say, you know, to advocate for it and to find out what do you, I guess, say to parents who may be battling with trying to figure out what to do, and they think their child is just having an attitude problem or doesn't want to talk or doesn't want to produce, and that's what we chalk it up to. What would you say to those parents to maybe take that a little more seriously, especially in the face of the rise of suicide rates from young people from ages 13 to 24? What would you say to those parents?
I would tell those parents this: you have to set the culture you want in your home. And if you don't set the culture is going to be there. It's just going to be an unhealthy one. You have to intentionally set the culture. And what I mean by that is, do you want a culture where your children feel safe to come and share with you? On a previous episode, we talked about the importance of a safe space. We have to intentionally create that. Let me share with you all what I teach my daughters. I make them say this to me: there is nothing, and I mean nothing, that could ever, and I mean ever, make mommy stop loving me.
Amen.
I make them repeat that. Let me tell you why. Because I need them to understand that there is nothing you could tell me that's going to make me stop loving you. And so we have to create that culture. Now, the other part about that is the reality is, you said this so eloquently, many of us were raised in homes where we were told, suck it up, get over it, sit down somewhere, be quiet. These children are going to talk to somebody. They're going to talk to somebody. Now, do you want them to talk to the stranger on the internet? Do you want them to get their advice from their from their little friends? You know, mama say, your little friend. Do you want them to get it from their little friend? Or do you want them to get it from you? And if you want them to talk to you, you have to create that culture. Now, even with that in mind, we have to realize as parents, there are going to be other influences. And so what I do intentionally is to create a village around my daughters, so that even if they don't feel comfortable coming to share with me, they know the next person in line. They know the next person in line. And those people have let them know, listen, we're your safe space. You may not feel comfortable telling mama, but you need to tell someone. So what I would say to those parents is, listen, our children are being exposed to things that we could never imagine. And their little brains cannot handle all that they are being exposed to. And so they figure out how to handle it. And when they get overexposed, those symptoms begin to rise. And you want to be the place that they come to navigate that stuff.
Absolutely.
I mean, you are so dynamic. I want to hit one more thing that she said.
Absolutely.
Just a stressor. That village
is
huge.
Let me just say the village. I don't know what I would have done without the village around my children. I don't know. My kids have aunties galore. And like, you just said, Robin, about if you don't want to talk to me, cool. You got Auntie Jen, you don't want to talk to Auntie, no problem. There go Auntie Jen. Oh, you want to talk to her, no problem. Go on here to Auntie April. The village. And if, everybody may not have that, but everybody can find somebody. There's somebody that should find your people, find your tribe.
Like she was saying,
Find your tribe and indoctrinate them into your children's lives, because it is so critical. Because if you aren't there, Robin, I just want if I was where you were, I would be
virtual hug. Robin May. You can catch her at AIB Network. Her show is Intentional Living, and she came here with intention, and her intentions were spot on.
All of them.
Thank you, Tristan.
Welcome.
You gotta
Timothy.
come back.
Baby.
And of course, my sisters and my co-hosts always got my back, and I always got theirs. Christine Beatty and Stacey J. Johnson. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all so much for just showing up for me and being a part of my village. I appreciate you. Absolutely. 2 pieces. I want to leave us with this clip from my good friend and mental health advocate, Shanti Das. We did a town hall discussion on mental health at Clark Atlanta University. And I want you guys to watch this, because the biggest part about getting help for mental health is to silence the shame in your head that tells you the stigma and the stereotypes and all of that other stuff means that you're crazy. That is not it. It means that you need help. And just like we work out our bodies and we work out our bank accounts and we have physical health and all the spiritual health, we need mental health. And we need to exercise that as well. Once again, I can't thank y'all enough. This conversation was so important.
Absolutely.
We'll get back to our special guests and our throne chairs later, but I am so glad, Robin May, that we had you to walk us through this very, very important conversation. I want you guys to take a look at this clip. If there is any situation that you need help with at all, please contact a crisis center immediately, and don't be ashamed about it. I'm Nicci Gilbert. You're watching She Speaks Live.
So the real reason I think I started Silence is Shame is because a lot of people didn't know my father took his own life when I was 7 months old. I have 2 siblings. So I was 7 months old. I was a baby. My sister was 8 and my brother was 5. And my dad shot himself in the head on my sister's bed. And so my mom's black. My dad was actually from India, from Calcutta. So I didn't know a lot about Indian culture. I grew up in African-American culture. And oftentimes, how many times have you heard people say, oh, we don't talk about that kind of stuff. You don't tell your problems or your secrets or what's going on. So when a lot of my friends or kids would ask where my dad was, I would say, oh, he died. But I never would offer up any information because I was embarrassed and I was ashamed. I never went to counseling. I never really talked about it. So even if your career is intact, if you marry and you got kids, if you have something that's stressing you out mentally and physically and you never deal with it and it just festers inside, you're gonna reach a breaking point. I, unfortunately, like Shanita, contemplated suicide. I counted the pills in my medicine cabinet, and by the grace of God, I ran into a friend that night. I just started driving aimlessly. And again, I didn't want to die. I just wanted the pain to go away. But my sister convinced me to call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, which is 1-800-273-TALK. And then I texted my pastor. Shout out to Dr. Raphael G. Warnock of Ebenezer. He said, I will pray with you, but you need to get some help. So I went and got the help. I got on my little happy pills, as I like to call them, my antidepressants.
Yes, indeed.
And I'm sitting here tonight. Seriously. Here. And that's how Silence is Shame was born, so that we can silence that shame. So many people go through so much and they suffer in silence. And the good news is help is there.
If you or someone you love is dealing with depression or mental illness, let them know there is help out there. No one has to suffer alone. please call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. The number is 800-273-TALK. That's 800-273-TALK.